Good afternoon and welcome to the introductory session of our virtual Community Safety Summit. I'm glad to be able to welcome each and every one of you this afternoon. My name is Lizelle Maurice. I'm the Executive Director from the Border Chamber of Business, and who is co-chairing with or co-hosting with MSC Corporate Solutions, Cobus Potgieter, who we'll give over to shortly. But just to introduce why we felt the need for these virtual community summits. I mean, it's no secret to all of us here this afternoon that crime is on the increase. And what do we as the community have to do to answer that pertinent question that is all on our minds? How do we create safer communities? I mean, it was in the headlines not so long ago that nearly 13 people are killed every day, in particularly the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape is officially the highest population ratio of murders in the country. I mean, the grim statistics every day we are faced with within our country. And I think it's up to us as leaders of our society to ask these pertinent questions, but not only to ask the questions, to come up with the answers to that question by means of collaboration. You will see that we as leaders today are going to ask the question, how do we create those safer communities for our children and for our grandchildren to stay in the South Africa that we all desire to live and work in? And today, with that introduction, please allow me to introduce my co-host to you this afternoon, who will make some introductory remarks. And he's Cobus Potgieter, an experienced CEO with demonstrated history of working with the education management industry, skilled in coaching, integrated marketing, entrepreneurship, education technology, and public speaking. Cobus is a strong professional with a BA Honours focused on national strategy from RAU, as well as the founder and chief executive officer of MSC Education Holdings, who is co-chairing or co-hosting with us this afternoon. He is also the chairperson of the Safety and Security Committee at the Border Chamber of Business. I'll give over to my host now to greet you all. Cobus Potgieter, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Lizelle. And yeah, thank you for everybody that's tuning in. Also, Prof. Dries, it's great to have you on the panel here today. I think to start off with this, now is the time for us to fully understand exactly what we are facing. The exponential increase in crime as we now experience affects all South Africans. And it is evident that the South African police services and law enforcement agencies are not coping and do not have the ability nor the capacity to on their own safeguard the communities. We have now come to a place where no one has the luxury of doing nothing yet. But fortunately, we have great capacity and ability within our communities that is untapped to a great extent and just needs to be identified, nurtured, and coordinated. South Africans are known to be resilient, and they do well in times of crisis. Some communities have successfully mobilized and are doing great work, but it's often only driven by a few members in the community. And it would be a great advantage to all if everyone gets involved and implement these best practices in their own communities. It must be seen as a priority to get everyone in the community to actively participate. However, there are some glaring gaps that need to be addressed, and this forms part of the purpose of what we want to achieve during this series of roundtable events. For one, the communities have a lack of knowledge of what they can and can't do. Also, they have a historical reliance on the South African police services to protect them. Unfortunately, SAPS, law enforcement, and the military are under-resourced and often plagued by corruption, poor management, and weak leadership, which results in an inability to act effectively when they are called upon. Having said that, there are many excellent committed members within the police who are doing an astounding job, but unfortunately, they are in the minority. To overcome the gaps mentioned, we need to harness all the resources to our disposal and collaborate. And therefore, it is vital that we understand the role of each stakeholder and maximize the expertise each stakeholder brings to the table. We have come to a place in history where communities need to protect what is theirs and their loved ones. It is our constitutional right for us as South Africans and our businesses and properties to be protected against crime and violent acts of terror. So, if we should ask the question as to the role that we need to play as community members, it is so important to understand that security starts at home, and in many cases do not necessarily cost money. Like, for instance, to be alert. We all need to be involved and gather relevant information for early detection. This is being successfully done via neighborhood watches, community patrolling, etc., but also to continuously be on the lookout for any out of the norm activity whilst driving around. Throughout this, we will start the process of minimizing the freedom of movement of criminals in our communities, which will reduce criminal intent in our areas. We also need to understand our role in situations and how to collaborate with each other's stakeholders to ensure justice prevails. We need to understand our rights and how to act accordingly. That means how and what and to whom should we report incidents to. And lastly, to have a good understanding of the law so that we always act within the boundaries thereof. If not, we just open ourselves to be prosecuted as criminals. And I think on that note, I would like to hand back to you, Lizelle.
Thank you, Cobus. Thanks for those introductory remarks. I think we're sitting with a genuine problem in our country. And I think we, as you rightly say, we need to get involved as the citizens of the country. We need to become more involved, become more aware of what's happening around us. You know, we're responsible for our own safety, as can be seen in the lack of visible policing, you know, people taking the law into their own hands, etc. Now, here to answer this question, how can we create safer communities? We would like to welcome our Professor Dries Velthuizen, who is going to discuss with us the root causes endangering peace and stability in South Africa and the importance of collaboration, as well as how to restore peaceful relationships to reverse the current situation. Now, as you can see, I'll just give you a little introduction of Professor Dries Velthuizen, who is a professor at the University of South Africa at the faculty of the Thabo Mbeki African School for Public and International Affairs, and he specializes in the field of African conflict studies. His primary academic interest is to teach and develop new theories for conflict resolution, peace, and security in Africa, and is a National Research Foundation rated researcher. An accomplished professor, very knowledgeable in his field concerning safety and security, and I think the most appropriate person to actually answer that all pertinent questions. How can we create safer communities? Professor Dries Velthuizen, welcome, and thank you for availing your time to come and assist and facilitate this all-important discussion that we have here this afternoon. I'm going to pose the very first question to you, but before I do that, I want to just, those of you who came in late, I want to say welcome to you. I want to tell our audience that the meeting is being recorded. And please, as the seminar or the summit continues, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We are going to take answers to those questions that you pose on the chat right at the end of the session. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you like on the chat. My first question to you, Professor Dries Velthuizen, Please tell us a bit more about your research on peace, security and conflict, and what would you say are the main causes of violent conflict in South Africa? Over to you, sir, and welcome again.
Thank you very much, Lizelle and Cobus, for inviting me here and involving me here. It's a privilege to make a contribution. Now, in a response to your question, is my keen interest and awareness of the importance of peace and security in our communities actually started more than 4 decades ago when I was an officer serving in the so-called Bush War in Namibia and Angola. This is where I became intensely aware of the impact of violence on communities. But then I also witnessed the relatively successful peace processes in Namibia, Mozambique, South Africa and other places. And I realized that peace is possible if people could find common ground, especially when the opportunities come from your international and political environment where conditions can change any day. So my academic research as an academic took me to places such as the DRC, Uganda, Rwanda, the river states of Nigeria, Tigray in Ethiopia, and our own San communities in Southern Africa. All places that had to survive and become resilient in the face of violence and turmoil over many decades. But I also found places of peace who, after centuries of turmoil, became peaceful spaces, such as the Czech Republic and Suriname in the Caribbean. So and I realized that peace is possible. Eventually, my research culminated in a body of knowledge that informed my thinking that lasting peace is possible. But then communities must be willing to be building blocks of a peaceful society. So I'll pause there. Thank you, Lizelle.
Thank you so much.
I wonder if I can come in here, Lizelle.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you touch on a very important, or a couple of very important concepts when you mentioned the need for sustainable multidisciplinary partnerships. And perhaps many people are not aware of the E2 program, the Eyes and Ears, driven by Business Leadership South Africa. I know we are going to have Fouchier Burgers from Business Against Crime speak about the E2 project in more detail during our next roundtable discussion on the 27th, I think, 27th of July. But please allow me to just as an introduction say this about E2. It is a very effective initiative that is accessible to communities during threatening situations. They collaborate very well and very closely on a national basis with the South African police services, business as a whole, and private security companies on a daily basis. This excellent network of communication and resources is available to us, and as a community, we need to form part of this collaboration. It is also very interesting to note that there are currently over 500,000 private security guards in South Africa, which, by the way, is way more than the current manpower of the police force. It is an incredible resource that is not always utilized to its full extent or capacity. Another role player here is Agri-SA. They are playing a huge role coordinating and making information available to E2 through a vast network of cameras placed in crucial areas, and it allows for early detection of criminals moving into our area or leaving an area after an incident. This many a time prevent attacks or lead to the capture of these criminals after an incident. Also interesting to note that some of the big retail chains has also joined forces through linking their surveillance cameras and their networks with that of the E2. As a last point on this, to successfully minimize the freedom of movement of criminals within our communities and South Africa as a whole, we should allow a five-pronged approach. First of all, early detection. As mentioned earlier, the community plays a vital role here. Visible presence to deter criminal activity. Quick response, which can be enhanced by good collaboration. The sharing of accurate information timeously to improve all levels of reaction. And then lastly, building relationships and communities, and Prof. Dries has alluded to that as well. We need strong leadership in all areas to coordinate actions and capabilities within all our different communities, whether business, rural, and urban. So thank you, Lizelle. That's how I will end off here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cobus. Definitely, what is coming through very strongly from your introductions and etc. is that it's all our responsibility, you know, to create safer communities. And I think that it's such an apt or an appropriate timing for this to happen now, especially on the backdrop of our 21 children who, I mean, the memorial service was today. So this particular summit is very timeless at this time. So welcome to all of those who joined late. Please, just a reminder to put your comments, questions, etc. on the chat. We are engaged in the virtual Community Safety Summit, and we have my co-host Cobus Potgieter from MSC Corporate Solutions, as well as Professor Dries Velthuizen from the University of UNISA, who is our guest speaker, talking and trying to answer that pertinent question: how can we create safer communities within our societies? My second question to you, Professor Dries, after all the research that you've done, what would you say is the most important factor that will improve the security and the well-being of the people in South Africa?
Thank you for that question. You know, our security services and our private security industry is doing a very good job in trying to mitigate what is happening today in our communities. And I think it's a very important task. But my research showed, after everything I've been reading, presenting, learning from students, that the one major factor that can improve all this is peaceful relationships between the diversity of people in our communities. Anything else is just giving medicine to a very sick body, but it doesn't cure the sickness. Peaceful relationships is at the crux, at the foundation of the diversity of people in our communities of South Africa. If South Africans can focus on improving these relationships among themselves, that manifest in the collaborations that Cobus so ably described to us. If we can improve, if those relationships can manifest in collaborations, then we can find solutions, and we can implement those solutions irrespective of our historical and current divisions. This is very idealistic view, I know. But if other people in the world can do it, we can also do it. I'm convinced of that. I'll pause there. Thank you.
Yeah, Dries, I think the biggest threat, and you mentioned it, to the SAPS and local community relationships lies in the fact that members of the communities have a lack of knowledge on how to act and what is expected of them when, for instance, they find themselves at a crime scene. For example, if or when a farmer has been attacked and killed, surrounding farmers flock to the scene and in many instances arrive at the crime scene way before the police. Now, as you can expect, as emotions run high and angry farmers contaminate the crime scene to such an extent that critical pieces of evidence are being disturbed and cannot be used to either apprehend or bring perpetrators to justice. Many a time, vehicles are parked in such a way that neither SAPS nor ER have access to the crime scene to assist survivors of the attack. And then to top it all, when the police or the reaction force ask the farmers to leave the crime scene, normally it ends up in a scuffle. I used to call this ill-disciplined action by farmers, but it actually stems from a lack of understanding, mixed obviously with emotions of how a crime scene needs to be preserved and protected. And this will go a long way in ensuring that justice is served, perpetrators are apprehended, and lives are saved. This type of behavior, understandably, then also leads to strained relationships between SAPS and the community, something that stands squarely in the way of our goal to achieve safer communities. Thank you, Lizelle.
Yeah, thank you so much for those comments. I think, people are definitely looking for solutions, and sometimes, the solution is not always immigrating to a safer country, because I think crime is in every country. It's just to different degrees, etc. And I mean, we're all very passionate. I mean, the people that have come on this chat, on this meeting this afternoon, are passionate, and they are concerned citizens for the safety and security of our country and of themselves as well. So I'm going to ask our third question to Professor Dries, is, if you say that relationships are founded on values of humaneness, are the most important factors to attaining peace and security, how do you think we can achieve that in South Africa? What is the solution actually?
As South Africans, we have more to work with that we sometimes are willing to admit to ourselves. The many good South Africans I know, and you find them everywhere, we have a common cultural trait. First of all, to do things collectively. South Africans like to do things together. We never really subscribe to the individualism that we sometimes see elsewhere in the world. And from a very young age, most South Africans learn to have the respect for the dignity of others from a very early age. It comes with mother's milk. And with that comes the natural trait of hospitality and common friendliness to each other. You see that everywhere today. Sometimes we are so overwhelmed by the negative noise in the media that we do not recognize the voice of decency that's coming from most people that we are interacting with. For me, that is something we should build on, and we can build on. Everywhere we also see how people are working together very well in the field of community safety and security.
Dries, once again, the importance of collaboration between all stakeholders just cannot be overemphasized. However, in practice, we still find many times a hesitancy between SAPS, the community, as well as the private security companies to share resources. But I think it all stems from a lack of understanding of each other's roles, which leads to a lack of trust. And as a result, the relationship building doesn't take place. Now, I think there's a definite need to establish structures that can bridge this divide, that can also harvest and further develop untapped resources available within each of our communities. This, however, means that people need to understand, it takes sacrifices of time, energy, commitment, and sometimes finances to make communities safe again. So I concur 100% with your statements there, Dries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Cobus and Professor Dries. And I really think, South Africans are very wonderful people, and we love to build relationships And, but trust is also another thing, that comes into that building relationships, etc. I just want to say thank you to those who are posting on the chat. We will definitely take these questions after the session, but please feel free to continue posting, etc. as well. So now we want to go over to the next question, and which is actually our final questions. We are sort of running ahead of time as well. So we will take a set of questions right at the end of the session, and please feel free to continue posting those pertinent questions, because I think we're at a time in our country where we really, it's a concern for us. Safety and security of our communities is a collective concern for us. And how do we collaborate? How do we bring the parties together? And I think this afternoon session is just that, having the right conversations with the right people at the right time and answering those critical questions that are being posed at the moment. So Professor Dries, if you say that the current trend of violent crime in South Africa can be reversed by the restoration of peaceful relationships, what should we then, as citizens, do to ensure or to work towards a safer South Africa?
You both said it. Building trust. Start with building trust. It's very important. Relationships based on trust. It's good to have structures for that. It's good to have it in a structured way to bridge that divides in our society. But also as South Africans, we have a natural way to network. Sometimes when I read about networking in the world, I see it's a new discovery to some people. But South Africans, we are natural networkers. So those informal networks in our community, in the rest of society, we shouldn't hesitate to use those networks to build trust among each other. Across bridges, across those divides, as I said, that was illusions that was created in our history. We must use our networks to bridge those divides. But then I want to come also, if you ask what should we do as citizens, I think it's very important that these security forces that was mentioned, official and private, that we as citizens support them in the performance of their very vital tasks. For those of you who served in these forces and served in private security industry will know that this is not an easy job. It must be one of the most complicated tasks next to being a nurse. And they need the support of all citizens, whatever their capacity limitations are and whatever they do wrong. As citizens, we should never fail to support our security capacity. For instance, we need to ensure that our security forces have credible information to assess their risks, which is a challenge nowadays in the world of false information and overwhelming media, because they need to adjust their contingency plans. They need to do things like put emergency communication systems in place, map the risks that for their businesses and for the communities. So we need to assist our security forces to get the right picture of what is happening. And moreover, you know, we need to help them to identify the triggers that will cause escalation of violence, like we've seen recently happening in our country. And as I see today happening in Mpumalanga, what will trigger an escalation in violence? As citizens, we need to help and assist our security forces in that. Because, you know, we don't have control over our political, social, economic, and environmental conditions. We can only mitigate the impact. A good place to start is to take the lead in serving each other and the people around us. It's time for people to find common purpose, to work together, join their hands, not waiting for anybody to instruct them or call on them. Every person who wants to do good must join like-minded people and share the resources where they are fortunate enough to have surplus resources. We need to start talking to each other. But most of all, we should start listening to all the voices, not only the dominant voices that are coming to us through the media all the time, but also to the young people, the women, the elderly of our society. People have different views of the world, but many people are willing to share the lessons they have learned from their lived experience. We need to learn from each other as citizens. We need to understand not only the history of what destroyed peaceful relationships, but also the challenges that confront us today. The priority now is to build a future for our children, not to fight each other. We are living in a wonderfully free society that we sometimes forget to treasure. Despite our many challenges, we have the freedom of action. You know, that's an important strategic concept, freedom of action, to change violent communities into spaces of peace. We have it. We're living in a free country, in a free society. So every small collaborative action on community is like a pebble on water. You know, when you throw a pebble on the water, it creates circles that go out in all directions. It reaches somewhere beyond what we can control and even see. But it leaves an impact long after we walk away. So we need to throw some pebbles on the water now. That was the short answer. Thank you, Lizelle.
And just before Cobus come in, I mean, you mentioned a very important fact, and I was trying to see when you mentioned the young people, the youth, you know, they are actually the most vulnerable. And if I look at the participants here, I'm sure there's nobody younger than 20 years old. You know, we need to start thinking, how do we involve them in the conversation? How do we bring them in? Because we are trying to create a safer future for them. So how do we ensure that they become then part of this conversation as well? You don't have to answer right now, Professor Dries, but I'll give over to Cobus as well. Over to you, Cobus.
Yeah, thank you, Lizelle, and thank you, Dries. I think if I try to pull the things that we discussed this afternoon together, maybe just as a part of a conclusion, I think the time has come to look beyond our current safety and security structures. And I would like to use as an example what happened in KZN with the looting, where different segments of the community stood together. As did in the Eastern Cape, the Taxi Association came in to protect people and their properties. So, to take us back to the words of Sun Tzu, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We should always look to see who we can work with to safeguard our environments. And I think that's 100% in line, Dries, with your comments as well. I think safe environments and conditions need to be created for agricultural and economic activities to continue, so that they can continue laying a positive foundation for all peace-loving communities, both in the rural and the urban areas, so that we can once again enjoy that life that you were talking about, everyday life for all, in order that, first of all, agricultural industry can function and produce normally. The diverse economic activities may carry on unrestricted. We take, for example, tourism. Family activities and responsibilities may carry on unhindered in both the rural and the urban areas. And also a thing that many a time we forget about, and that is that all employees may once again form an integral part in the economic growth and social well-being of a healthy economy. And I think to achieve this, cooperation and engagement of the community and other interest groups is a necessity for a successful security system. Now is the time to stand together and to understand our roles. So when there's an incident, we ensure communication is accurate, expedited, and also to the relevant parties. Crime scenes are protected and the law is followed. To master this will require knowledge sharing, training and capacity building, rehearsals, post-mortems, feedback loops, and the updating of our security doctrine, basically on a daily or weekly basis. And just imagine how different the KZN looting incident would have been if the communities were prepared and organized up front. In fact, I want to go further and state that perhaps the incident could have been deterred or perhaps prevented. There is no doubt that our country is in crisis. And I want to end with what Dante said in the early 1300s, that the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who in times of great moral crisis maintain their neutrality. We just cannot afford to do nothing anymore. Thank you, Lizelle.
Thank you so much for that, Cobus. I think, you know, without giving my age away, and I'm still fairly young, when we were growing up, we did window shopping. I don't know about any of the participants here, but I mean, I remember a time when we used to go window shopping, you know, where there was no big garage doors in front of shops. You could go walk down the street in your shopping, in your CBD, you know, and peek through windows. That's what window shopping was all about. Now you can't even do that. You know, there's so many different crimes that have come up. Cyber crime, extortion, human trafficking. The other day they found a big container with 39 or 49 bodies. I mean, that is unthinkable. You know, and some of the solutions mentioned here this afternoon, peace is possible if people find common ground. Building blocks, you know, relationships, the building blocks of peaceful societies, the E2 network, things that have been, you know, structures that have been put in place to try and curb the surge of crime that has just escalated throughout, you know. So my question to you, Professor Dries. I know this is the first in a series of a couple of roundtable discussions that will be held. What do we expect? This is the introduction. We're laying the foundation here. You know, it's levels, different levels. So we're laying the foundation. What can we expect going forward? By when? Who are we going to invite to these roundtables? And we want our participants here to go away, take this session away with you. Go and invite your families and friends. If you think there's somebody else that needs to be part of this all-important conversation, invite them to the next roundtable discussion, because our country is under siege. We as the community, we're under siege, you know, by criminal forces. So how do we protect and prepare ourselves? Professor Dries, what can we expect in the couple of weeks coming?
Yes, it's very exciting. We are going to build a body of knowledge by means of roundtable discussions over the next few months. Starting with understanding the threat against the communities and specifically against the people who live there. Then we're going to move to, give you the dates now, then we're going to move to finding solutions together. We already listened to some probable solutions, and that finding solutions together will focus on the collaboration among community stakeholders, the nitty-gritty of how that should be done. And then a last session will go to specifically to the prevention or the mitigation of violence against your property or business. So we're going to build that body of knowledge by means of 3 roundtable discussions, the first being on the 27th of July, We have 4 panelists that already agreed to join us: Professor Theo Venter, Professor Josiah Lebakeng, Colonel Dr. Letitia Olivier, and Mr. Fushia Burger from the security industry. Professor Venter is University of Johannesburg, Professor Lebakeng is at UNISA, Colonel Dr. Olivier is with the Military Academy in Saldanha, Stellenbosch University, and Fushia is with the security industry. And as I said, the first one, we will be talking about understanding the threat against the community. Everybody who registered for today will, of course, be invited. Please spread the word. We need the minds of many people. We need the higher minds. It will be at 1400 again. It looks like it is the most convenient time from everybody. And these panelists will come together with all interested stakeholders. And we need to learn from each other. On 24 August, we will be dealing with finding solutions together. On the 20 September, preventing or mitigating risk of violence. Don't worry about the dates now. It will be communicated to you. So we're going to build the knowledge together. Thank you very much for attending and for the question. And I'm ready for questions. Thank you, Lizelle.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really look forward to the lineup as it comes up. Those dates again: 27th of July, 24th of August, and 20th of September. And really what I think it is clear to us that the current policing system has failed our country. There are gaps, there are shortcomings, and what we gather here from these roundtable discussions, it will be good to actually have where we go forward and we go to our Minister of Police and say, look, let us have a roundtable, with you. These are our findings over the last couple of weeks. Can we sit down and talk? We want a safer South Africa. That is what we all aspire to. That is what we want for our children and our grandchildren and our future generations as well, because they will hold us accountable. They will ask us the question, why did you not do anything? So our first question on the chat is from Mrs. Carol Taggart. What would you recommend as a starting point for our neighborhoods to build collaborations with other stakeholders? That question is posed to you, Professor Dries. I'll allow you to answer that question. What would you recommend as a starting point for our neighborhoods to build collaborations with other stakeholders?
Thank you, and I'm going to be very practical there. First, go and meet your neighbors. Who's living next to you, behind you, across the road from you, and start talking to them. I live in a neighborhood where we, in some cases, we don't even know the surnames or names of our neighbors. They work elsewhere and they come there to stay and live there at night. So we will start talking to each other, to our neighbors, irrespective of who they are. And then there are many. I'm going to divide that into organized and intuitive networks, as I call it. Join your organized forums. Go there, they need you. In some other capacity, somewhere we have some spare time. And you will be surprised how they will appreciate your knowledge. Even if it's to patrol 2 o'clock at night, the streets as part of your police forum, local neighborhood watch. And so join the formal structures in your environment. You can start with your police station if you don't know who they are. And other community organizations such as your churches and organizations like Rotary. There's a Rotary club in every town and in every city. There are quite a few in cities, in fact. So you can join them. Informally, intuitively, go out and see your communities. Go and have a beer in your community. If you go and meet the people, be friendly to me, you will be astonished that you not only find cold beer there, but very good people that you've never had the courage to go and meet. That way we start listening and we start learning from people. So that is for me the starting points to get involved in your neighborhood. I hope I answered that question, Carol.
Yeah, no.
Just come in here as well, Dries. What we've experienced also is there is such untapped resources within each community. And just because the fact that we do not talk to each other, we don't know about it. But it was amazing to us when we started off with in our neighborhood with these actions, start communicating with each other and see what everybody can bring to the party. And it just, you know, it's like a cohesion. People are getting together, and we, as a group of people, we stand much better chances of deterring, you know, any acts of violence in our area.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So that's the first question. And really, neighborhood BRI, building relationships with your neighbors, you know, knowing your neighbors, joining the organized forums and community organizations, that's a good starting point there. And, you know, in the business circles here, we know, and I don't know where you are dialing in from, but in East London, people like to do business, in particular with those people they know, they like, and they trust. And it really boils down to exactly what we are saying here now. It's know your people, you know, look out for each other is what you are actually saying. You know your neighbor, and if there's anything strange around your neighborhood, then you can be able to identify that quickly because you know your neighbors. You know, so I've just a couple of comments that I want to read here from Mr. Velthuizen. A lot can go wrong from the incident to conviction. Crime scenes as vehicle crashes need to be managed. Power games could break any chance for collaborations. Leaders should serve without own interest. And that is really what it boils out to. You know, civil servants becoming civil servants. Serving is being the operative word there as well. Those are just comments. They are not questions. Do you want to say anything about those comments?
Yeah, if I can go first about the accident. When you reach an accident, I think the rules have mentioned it, and crime scenes to be managed, like vehicle crashes, etc. You know, as many of us people in the security industry are trained soldiers, and policemen are also trained in this regard. So the reaction to that is intuitively, it's intuition. They go through drills to deal with things like that. But your average citizen is not. They don't know how to deal with that. So maybe it's also good to get just our normal citizens involved when they're involved to teach them in things like how to deal with situations like that. What are the drills to go through? Once again, as Cobus said, it's about sharing of knowledge. And that is the kind of knowledge that can be shared with our citizens. And there we look at our young people. You know, my feeling is that young people will grab the opportunities to learn more about it, because I detect a lot of uncertainty among our young people in the current situation. You know, as maturer people, we sort of know how to deal and be resilient to everything happening around. But young people, we need to empower our young people.
I think we need to engage. Yeah, we need to engage them in the conversation as well.
Yeah, and then power games. It will always be with us. That is how people are. And for those of us who don't like power games, we need to know how to deal with it. And for me, the simplest thing is not to play power games anymore. as a person. I cannot control other person's power games, but I can control my own mindset. So we need to work on our own mindsets and not to become part of other person's power games. Not to be used by another person or grouping who's playing power games.
Yes.
That's a short answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to take on the chat is from Anton Groenewald. I'm going to mention his comment and then I'll take his question right to the end. And then we'll go on to Lorraine Martin, which is the last question. Not pointing fingers at SAPS, it is very concerning that the service my group receives from the Lalis areas are concerning and a huge problem to us. So his question is, can we get the provincial commissioners of each province to join the meeting and advise as to what solutions with the lack of policing and what they can do to safeguard South Africa?
Is that to me again, the question?
I think that there was a plane that just went over somebody's house there.
Oh yeah, it was mine. I don't even hear it anymore.
No, that's fine. You can answer that question, but I think going forward we will have police as part of the panelists, but you can correct me on that.
Yes, it will be wonderful if we can, if they have time for us, we will invite them, of course, and then we will listen to the solutions they have, very informed solutions. I think it will also be a golden opportunity for them to have other people listening and testing the solutions they have. You know, any good commander, like a commissioner, a leader and commander, they like to listen to the advice of other people and test their own assumptions before they make decisions. So yeah, it will be a privilege to be part of that. And I like the suggestion that we invite, if the commissioner is not available, I'm sure there will be other senior officers that would love to join this forum.
Yes, yeah.
If I could just come in here, because you touched on a very important thing, and Dries, in the beginning you said, let's be practical. And I think what we've experienced specifically in our area, and we are living in a rural type of area. But what goes a long way is whenever we do exercises or whatever, we involve the local police station and also the people that the policemen that actually are working in our area. And by just doing that, we're starting to build great relationships to such an extent that the police actually come to us and come and assist us with certain things. Because in the rural community, many a time it happens that when there's an incident, SAPS just doesn't have the capacity to get to the place, because we always believe that we need to be at the place of action or the point of impact within 10 minutes of the incident taking place. So many a times we as farmers need to react, but we need to know how to react. And everything, as I mentioned earlier, needs to be under the auspices and within the boundaries and the confines of the South African law and the Constitution. So how better to get the police in our area involved in exercises that we do? Because through this, we build the trust also for each other, because they can see that we actually, when we get to a crime scene, will adhere to the principles that needs to be followed when a crime has taken place. You know, but also little practical things. We're working with people. Policemen are people. And it is, I was astonished every time, especially on the lower levels, the passion that they are for this people to basically secure. But many a time they're working with their hands tied behind their backs. So, you know, if you take, for instance, a cake, take a cake to the police station and you see how those people's, their faces just lit up. And this is how we build relationships from the basic point. And then, you know, once we've organized and assured that type of relationship, it's so much easier. And the people, when you phone them, really go out their way to say, listen, we want to come and assist these people. And if they can't, they tell you that they can't. And, you know, you can make arrangements with private security, which has to form part of the whole initiative. And I must say that we have got great friendships, actually, and working relationships with the SAPs and police stations on the district level.
Thank you for that. So we have another question from Lorraine Martin. Who do we join to be part of helping the community and get training in helping in crisis situations? There was a roadblock training a while ago. Will there be more of these kinds of preparations, workshops? Cobus, you could answer that.
Yes, I think it actually, I've answered some of it in my previous remarks. The relationship building with police, and they come to us. It happens sometimes that they want to do a roadblock. So what we do before that, they get us together, because nobody knows the area where we are living as good and as well as what we do. So the police come to us and say, right, okay, we want to do a roadblock. Can we do some training beforehand? But I think what is very important here is that there needs to be a structure within our community. So somebody that can, first of all, talk to the police, and that can relay that and organize and coordinate the actions of the local community. In such a way, we build that trust, we build that relationship, and you know what? People start understanding what they can do and what they can't do. So that's just a basic short answer of how it happens in our area, and I must say it's very successful.
Thank you so much for that. So Ada wants to know, how can I obtain a recording? I missed the first part due to lectures. I want to just say that the link will be sent to participants with the recording. If by any chance you did not register, maybe somebody just sent you a link, please type your email address in the chat so that we can have your email address so that we can forward the link with the recording to you as well. So for Sheer Burgers, Mr. Burgers, everything that was said is valid and true. The real question that we should perhaps ask is why we have the high levels of crime, and especially the violence associated with the crimes in South Africa. Is it poverty? Is it inequality? Or is it political driven, etc.? So, Professor Dries, I don't know if you want to answer that question. Is it poverty? Is it inequality? Is it politically driven? Why is the high levels of crime, especially the violence associated with the crimes in South Africa?
Thank you for thinking that I have the ability to answer, give a complete answer to such a complex question. You know, your criminologist will tell you that it's a combination of all that and more. What causes crime in society? It's a combination of factors. You can start with political. The popular response is socioeconomic reasons, poverty, which I don't subscribe to. I know many poor people who are not criminals, most of them are not. So that's an easy answer out. I even hear arguments that climate change is responsible for crime, which I don't buy into. And then, of course, we blame our criminal justice system for not being responsive enough, or etc. But in the end, there is a truth in all that. But then you also have the makings. Your psychologist will tell you that a criminal, there's a certain psychological makeup of a criminal. And there's a socialization process of a person who turns into a criminal. And the theory that you know a criminal when you see them is not true. It proves to be unscientific and untrue. You can have the most smooth person looking at you that can be the worst kind of criminal, stealing millions from the state, you know, that kind of things, and breaking into your house. So it's Fushia, forgive me for not giving you the complete answer, but I think this is one of the opportunities that we have, the series of roundtables, to unpack that. Especially the first roundtable, where you can have a very close look at the causes and understand why crime takes place in our communities. And you know, violence in the communities is not all about crime. Protests are for very legitimate reasons in most cases. Frustrations of people running over into violence. Frustration is born from very real deprivation. Electricity is the current example. You know, salaries that, you know, if you see your management driving around in big German cars, and you must make your ends meet for 4,000 Rand a month, working 12 hours a day, people get angry. You know, those kind of things. So it's not, the violence in communities is not all about crime. It is some very legitimate reasons for protest, as enshrined in our constitution. And it is where you cross the line to violence. This is that we don't want. We want to prevent that crossing of the line from legitimate protest to violence.
Thank you for that answer, Professor Dries. I think definitely a psychological, because as you say, you know, poverty is not the answer, you know, or not the cause of it, because there's a lot of poorer people that are not violent or that are not criminals, if I can say it like that. And I know that just for our participants, the question, how do communities equip themselves? What structures are there to facilitate? That will be addressed in the second roundtable discussion on the 27th of July. So please ensure that you make it a point to attend that. And invite others, invite the right people. You know, if you think somebody else can add to the conversation, etc., we invite you to extend the invitation to as many people as possible, because what is evident is that we are sitting with a broken society. You know, brokenness causes brokenness. You know, the criminal element escalates crime in our communities. It's a sign that something is not right. Something is not working. Are there any other closing remarks based upon the chat, based upon the questions that have come out? Is there anything that you would like to say, that to leave our participants with, coming from the questions? You know, I know that going forward, Professor Dries, you will be hosting the various roundtable discussions, but is there anything from today's questions that you'd like to just comment on as a final comment? And maybe Cobus, if you could come in and just any final comment, invite, what can you leave our participants with, or what can you tell them, who to invite, what to do going forward to be part of these conversations?
I think before Cobus gives the final word in this, I just want to say, connect, connect, connect. Connect with each other. Connect with the people you don't know. Connect with the people you don't like. Connect with the police. Connect. Time is up for games.
Sure, powerful.
Thank you.
Connect,
Yeah.
connect. Time is up for games. Over to you, Cobus.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Dries. I think many a time people make heavy water of security, actually. And, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning, security starts at home. There's little things that you can do at your home and that you live by and that you teach your children to do that will go a long way in ensuring your security. And if everybody does that, it makes it so difficult for criminality to have access and to have freedom of movement in the area. So many a time, and I think it's also, and I have mentioned that people still think that, and it is our constitutional right to be protected, but they think wrongly that the South African police services have got the ability to do that and that they don't have to do anything themselves. And I think that is a wrong thing. I think there's so much things that we can do on a very basic level, and it's not a black art, to live by and to ensuring that our own security is there. And you know what? If each person does that, because if my security is better than my neighbor, it means it's easier for the perpetrator to go to my neighbor. But if everybody basically just uplift their own security, it will go such a long way. And then I think it's important to understand who to communicate with. Most of us, I think, has got armed response through whatever private security company that there is. But I think one of the important things here is to ensure that this private security institution that you are with, that they are linked to the E2 project, for instance. Because and Forshia Burgers will talk much more into this with the next discussion. But again, it just helps with timeous and correct procedures and also reaction. But I think it's also important, and that comes in with a lack of knowledge. What is expected of me, for instance, when I get attacked? What type of information do I give out? To whom do I give it out? And once, you know, the reaction team gets to my place, what is expected of me to assist them rather to get in their way? So I think there's a lot of knowledge, and I think this knowledge base will come through. And I've got no question in my mind that after these sessions, that people will be much more equipped to better handle any situation. So it's not a black art. It's actually easy stuff where the tacky hits the tar. If everybody does that, it will make it extremely difficult for perpetrators and criminal activity in our area.
Super. Thanks for those closing remarks. And really, this is a timely conversation, building safety, safer communities. And really, I want to thank our participants here this afternoon. So what is standing between me and your afternoon cup of coffee is just for me to say thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our guest speaker, Professor Dries Velthuizen, who will also be the host of all our roundtables going forward, and really continuing this important discussion of how do we create safer communities within our beloved country, South Africa. I want to thank our co-host, Mr. Cobus Potgieter, also Managing Director or CEO of MSC Corporate Solutions or Holdings, who partnered on these or put these virtual discussions together, and who's also chairperson of the Safety and Security Committee at the Border Chamber of Business. I want to say thank you to our media team, Vili and as well as Kyle in the background, for ensuring that everything runs smoothly in the background. And I want, most important of all, want to say thank you to every one of us for joining this afternoon and becoming part of the conversation, not only asking the questions, but definitely also coming up with beautiful solutions. Did I see your hand up there, Professor Velthuizen?
No, it was I wanted to give a thumbs up, but I see my thumbs up is not working.
Okay,
Thank you so much. And the
No
thumbs
problem. Thank you so much.
thumbs
Thanks,
up was for
everyone.
you. The thumbs up was especially for you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for that. Thanks a lot. We'll, okay, I thought I saw a hand up there. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a fantastic afternoon further and see you for the next roundtable discussion on the 27th of July, hosted by Professor Dries Velthuizen. Tot ziens, goodbye, abani kahle, everything of the best for this afternoon. Take care, bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.